going to go live on Facebook. We're going to start recording on OBS. Okay. We're going to start recording on the mixer in 5, 4, 3.
Welcome to the Awakened Collective, where we explore the topics of love, spiritual consciousness, and our divine purpose on this planet. Join us as we uncover the truth that our thoughts shape our reality. Welcome to the Awakened Collective. So good to have you here. I'm Rick Gregory. Really appreciate you joining us this morning. And I always need to remind you that you have never been separated from your Creator. How could you be? You are the divine extension of your Creator's love on this planet. So glad to be with you here today, and I'm especially grateful for my guest, my dear friend Ron Permenter. And Ron and we met probably, I'm guessing, it's probably been about 4 years ago now or so. I'm coming up on my 5 years mark for sobriety, so I think it was probably 4.5 years or so. Ron, however, has decades of experience, strength, and hope, and I just love this guy. Sweetest, kindest man you'd ever want to meet, and I've had the opportunity of hearing bits and pieces of his story. He shared not that long ago, but he was only given a 15-minute time limit. And Ron, I have to tell you that I've come across people that have, when I've told them that I heard, your story at this group, they're saying, did he share this part of his story? And I'm like, I don't remember that. And that's happened more than one time. Someone else has said, did he share such and such? I'm like, I don't remember that. I'm like, he's got more of a story to share. And I just know that I look at someone and hear what I've heard and see a life that is completely transformed. And it's a story that I don't think I've heard one like it in the almost 5 years that I've been here. It's amazing. And it reminds us all that there is hope. And I'm so glad to have you here today, Ron. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Take a breath, relax, and tell us about Ron.
Thank you, Rick. And thank you both for having me here this morning. And it's a blessing to be able to say that I've lived a life of recovery to where I can't possibly squeeze it in any time frames. It doesn't matter if it's 15 minutes, it would an hour, or it would just be impossible to squeeze all the blessings that I have had as a result of sobriety. And I often will say I didn't start living until, sometimes I feel like I took my first breath on January the 4th, 1994, which is my sobriety birthday. And, this past January 4th, I picked up a 30-year sobriety chip, and it was, I haven't really kind of stopped reflecting since that time. And, but I used to feel that all the world had some kind of secret recipe that I did not know anything about. I can remember watching people walk out to check their mail, hold their kids' hands crossing the street, going in and out of church, and I would scoff and laugh at these normal, ordinary people while I was out drinking and doing all kinds of things that I would have been better off not doing. But inside, I would have done anything to have been one of those people and just been normal and to do normal things. And I just felt like people knew something I didn't know. And later, who would have known that it was by surrendering that it would all begin for me. And I used to have such resentment that friends of mine seemed to be able to drink and socialize and all normally and successfully and without getting into trouble and without having difficulties, and that was not my case at all. But I guess I'll go back to, I was born into a family of alcoholism and codependency, basically. There was a lot of crazy things that went on. Now, everything was not crazy. There was great times as well, but there was definitely a lot of crazy. There was a lot of religiosity, hyper-religiosity, as well as alcoholism, and it just and that's what and codependency as well. But I don't. That's about the easiest way to describe it, because I don't want to get too hung up, into the problem only. But I'll just say that there was a lot of things in my childhood that happened that should not have happened, and I wish would not have happened. And but I've also been able to heal from a lot of that as well. Some of it even as recently as the past few years. And but I guess I could say I started drinking sometimes, the best I can recall, around the age of 13 or so. I can remember being very shy and not feeling part of, not belonging, feeling different, and just never quite fitting in. And then sometime around the age of 13 or 14, I was out with a lot of older kids. I'll say sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and I was probably more like around the 8th grade, moving toward 9th. And I discovered alcohol. And all of a sudden, I felt part of. It was, as we say jokingly sometimes, I had arrived. I felt, I could dance, I could laugh, I could joke. I just literally remember feeling like I fit in finally. And that was kind of the kickoff point for me. And I guess around, being honest, if I'm around the age of 17 or so, I started seeing problems. I started having blackouts. I can remember going out on dates, not remembering how ever getting home, or going to a party and not remember coming home at all. And I thought there was lots of parts of my teenage years and high school years that were fun, a lot of fun, and with some popularity. And there was big chunks of it that wasn't fun. I think I was discovering that I was gay around that time, and also trying to hide it, trying to fit in the normal world. And it's the only way I know to put it was I was kind of dating and looking normal by day, and living a different life at night. And I would in the daytime try to look like all my other friends, and have a girlfriend and play the part. But then at night, sneaking away and meeting other people and doing other things. It was almost like living a double life, even at that young of an age, and which continued years later into adulthood. And but when I graduated, I was pretty clueless. I didn't really know what I was doing. No one had really told me what to do. I didn't know what the plan was supposed to be, like what happened after that. I had just been corralled into years of partying and drinking and, being a high schooler. And so I can remember all of a sudden at graduation going, what am I supposed to do now? What? And I really just did not have a clue in any direction and guidance as to what that was supposed to look like after that. The one companion I did continue to have was alcohol. And I started college that first semester and didn't know what I wanted to do, so I followed my friends. I was very fortunate. I did have a core group. I had 2 guy best friends. We were kind of the 3 musketeers. We were always there for one another. And I just kind of followed my friends. I was just it's like, I'll do whatever you do. And so I started junior college, and I just kind of took classes that they took, and the drinking had really accelerated by this point. And fast forwarding a little bit, before my first semester of my first year in college, I had to drop out because I was blacking out so much I couldn't show up for class. I just had huge blocks of space and time that was nothing but a blackout. And so I couldn't keep up with class, couldn't keep up with grades, and then so I had to drop out. And everything just continued to accelerate. I kept finding employment that allowed for more drinking, and then other substances came into play during that time. And I went, and people always laugh. So, but at some point I was doing some oil field exploration work, and which allowed me to be away from home in places around New Orleans and way away. I was able to escape home, escape all that, and drink as much as I wanted. I can remember being so excited because Louisiana, the beer had higher alcohol content in it, and I remember just feeling just so excited about that. And but so I was actually a licensed explosive handler for Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and Alabama. So as my drinking and I was accelerating, I'm handling things like dynamite. And
wow.
So so for the next, I guess, maybe 10 or so years, I pretty much just found any part of life that allowed me to drink more, and continue to get more lost day after day. I had all kinds of legal consequences, troubled relationships, broken relationships, just very, very, very lost. And the other thing during those years was I was alienating myself also more and more from anyone that did care about me or love me. And because I was very blessed and fortunate, I think God puts people, you can call them guardian angels, or whatever fits. But for me, it was my grandparents, both my paternal and maternal. They were very safe people for me. I had cousins that was very safe and close to me that I'm still close to today. They're more like best friends. We were together from the time we were in diapers to this day, and also played a role even in my recovery, and continues to play a role. But I kind of hit a bottom. Well, I didn't kind of. I hit a bottom, and that was around Christmas of 1993. It was very miserable and very unhappy. So it was that New Year's, because I had reached a point where I couldn't not drink, and drinking didn't work. Those days where it offered conviviality and freedom and feeling part of and belonging were over. It was a trap. And so to not drink, I felt horrible, but to drink felt horrible. And so I was offered the opportunity to go to treatment and get help. And for the first honest thing come out of my mouth in a long time was somebody sitting across from me going, "Do you think you have a problem with alcohol?" And me looking at him and saying, "Well, I don't know. Maybe." Because you have to remember, alcoholism wasn't normal for me. I didn't see it as abnormal. But yeah, life started moving at that point. I can remember it like yesterday. And when I told this person I don't know, they said, "Well, that's okay." I said, "How about you go to these things there's these things called meetings, and I'd like you to, go to 2 or 3, and then let's talk again. And so that's what I did. I went with a friend on a Saturday night to a place locally around Jackson that we call Yana, and I went to a first meeting there, and a second meeting at my hometown in Forest, and I didn't have a clue what was going on, but I knew there was something, and I think it was that little spark of hope that had began, and I latched on. I didn't know what was out there for me, but I knew there had to be something better than what I had and the mess I had made of it. And even today, when I'm confused and I don't know what's going on, I go back to knowing what I don't want.
Yeah.
And I don't want what life had become at that point. And so for me, recovery began on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and I went to treatment, went to secondary, and I jumped into recovery. I was very blessed and fortunate because I was on the Gulf Coast that I was introduced to AA. I was introduced to Al-Anon. I was introduced to ACA. I was introduced to NA. I had early exposure to all these different programs. I was introduced to Lambda meetings, which are AA meetings that are available for LGBTQ plus members and anyone. But I just, God really stepped into my life, for me. Because all during this time, the last thing I wanted to look at was my sexuality. That was a big part of the drinking, was trying to suppress that, which is like suppressing the very air in me, because it was always such a huge part of who I am and who I always have been. And quite frankly, I think probably the most beautiful parts of me, going back as far back as childhood. And those safe people I mentioned at the beginning, those grandparents, those special cousins, those special people, they were the people that seen that all along and loved that part. Mm-hmm. They seen the truth. They seen the true Ron. They seen the true me and loved him.
Yep.
I just couldn't love him. I couldn't even see him, because society and parents and the authority figures in my life had said that part wasn't good. It wasn't acceptable. It wasn't wanted. It wasn't needed. It wasn't appreciated. It wasn't worthy. And at some point, I'm going to church. I'm going to school. I'm going to social events. I'm going to all these places that said that wasn't right, and that wasn't the person to be.
Especially in this part of the country, it's different in different areas. I know in Massachusetts, where I'm from, that seemed to be a lot more openness to being yourself. But in this part of the country, it's still a struggle for a lot of people to be honest with themselves because of that fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, and for me, like all parts of my recovery, that part needs to be spoken as well. Because if it helps one person, younger person, one kid, anyone, then it should be spoken and it should be shared. And absolutely, I feel like I owe that. And not only that I owe that, but I want to do that. And it's important. And so God showing up, in AA we have this thing called sponsors, and pretty much, so I'm not drinking, but I'm terrified at this point. I don't have a clue. I haven't had a sober breath since about the age of 13, and now here I am. At the time, I thought I was 28, but I actually found out I was 27. It's funny how that can work. I found out I was a year younger, and which goes to kind of show where I was at in life. There was no birthday celebrations or all that kind of thing. But the first person that approached me offered to be my sponsor. I didn't ask them. They just said, "Do you have one?" I said, "No." They said, "Well, you got one now." And he turned out to be a gay man with 30 years of sobriety. And became my first sponsor and introduced me to what he called my co-sponsor at the time. So when you can't reach me, you call this guy. And me and that guy are still, we were on the phone speaking yesterday, if that tells you anything.
Nice.
And he celebrated about 33 years of sobriety this time. And yeah, life took off because not only here was this person that opened me up to being, it was like a father figure, but they also just so happened that they were gay themselves. And it started showing me by example what a sober man that looks like, that can live a sober life and a full life, and not only as a sober person, but as a gay man and a spiritual man. And to this day, I share things in meetings that Bob shared with me back in 1994 and 95, and I feel his presence and with me every day. And I think that's a beautiful part of recovery, is that legacy that continues to go on from one person to another, of healing and recovering and discovering and uncovering. And I know I probably need to kind of push forward, but I did want to point out that, so my life started, and then I learned in the program, someone had told me, because here I was, I felt like I had just missed all these years, of college and friendships and relationships and just all these things I had missed. And this little lady had told me, she said, "Ron, you haven't missed anything." She said, through recovery, she said, you'll be able to recapture anything and everything that you think you missed and beyond that. She said, including relationships. And she said, you can have it all. She said, it happened to us, it can happen to you. Yep. And that has been my story. I jumped into recovery full force, and I walked in. I knew I was coming home from work one day, because I could not drive because I had lost my driver's license along the way due to drinking, and my sponsor wouldn't. He told me that if I didn't have a license, that I couldn't drive. He said, "You're going to have to, ask for rides to meetings. You're going to work on that every day to arrange that, and get to work." So it took about 18 months before I got a driver's license, and I rode my bicycle to get them in the Mississippi heat. But I dressed the part. I was the first tie I ever put on in sobriety was to go get my driver's license, and I have that license today, and I still can
really
look at it. Yep,
that's cool, because I'm sure that was a glorious day.
Yeah, he said, "Ron, it's a privilege to drive in the fine state of Mississippi. It's not a right." He said, but what was really going on behind that was I built these relationships, having to reach out and ask for transportation to meetings, and to even to go to the movies or to get to work. I had to reach out and ask for help. I would have never done that if it wasn't an absolute have to. And some of those relationships are just like the one I spoke of earlier. They're the ones I have today in sobriety. I still have those friendships, and I can still go down. I went back down to the coast about a year and a half ago, when I walked into my home group where I went to 515 meetings at Long Beach, and for about 3 years, 3 years of my recovery I spent down there, and these guys knew me, even though they hadn't seen me in 20-something years. They recognized me.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, that's because of recovery. Because if I had not been in recovery, first of all, I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't be alive. And so after about 3 years, I was able to go back to my hometown and I had learned through Al-Anon and ACA and AA. I had learned enough about recovery, how to function more healthily in my family. I had learned about family dysfunction, and how alcoholism is a family disease, and what that looked like. And I had gotten tools to function in a healthier way. And I went back to school. And one day I was sitting in class, and I looked up and looked out the window to my left and had this strange deja vu type feeling. And then as I sat, it came to me. I remembered that was also the last class I had sat in all those years ago when I had dropped out. It was the same school,
Wow.
same classroom,
Oh my goodness.
same instructor. I recognized her, and I remembered, and I thought, wow. So here I was sitting as a sober person, and
Did she remember you?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't. I don't know that I really shared that with anyone. Maybe my sponsor at the time, but no one around me there at school. But I can definitely say it was a totally different turnout. It started, it started a career for me in nursing because I didn't know if I could go to school. What I actually said was, I don't know if there's a brain cell left up there. And I said, and my sponsor said, well, you can try. You take one test at a time, one class at a time, and let's just see what happens. And I said, well, I don't even know what I want to do. He said, well, let's just play a game. He said, let's just say we all lived in a village together. There's no paychecks. There's no money. There's nothing, there's nothing like that. We just all have a job that serves one another to help the village survive. Everybody just has their own part. He says, well, what do you think you would do? And I thought. We were driving down Highway 90 at the coast. We had been to a meeting, I believe, over in Diamond Head or somewhere like that, and was driving back. And I said, well, I think I would be a nurse. I said, because I love to help people. I said, in tribes, I said, I enjoy the healers and the shamans and the people that actually have some form of healing involved. I said, so I don't know. I said, maybe in our culture that would be a nurse or something. And he said, well, there you go. You take one class, you take one test, and see if that's where God wants you to be. And so sometime around 1996 or so, as I'm sitting in that classroom, starting my journey into nursing at that point, and not only did I find I could make decent grades, I found out that I could still ask for help. And there were some things that was a struggle. I had some learning disabilities around math and things like that, and while the rest of my class was sometimes out for the holidays and out for Christmas, I spent doing math drills on Saturdays at school. But I also had a teacher that was willing to meet me up there and do these kind of things. And but as a result, and I also graduated from my nursing classes. That year, Student of the Year.
Wow!
And
good for you.
And got to represent our school at a national level organization, and got a free trip to LA out of it.
Nice.
But it's just, and that's just a tiny part of how God can show up and what can happen in recovery, just like the lady in the meeting told me that day. And so that was a beautiful thing. So and I've continued to be in nursing and continue to go to school, even up to as much as 2 years ago. I was still going to school.
I know you were.
Yeah.
I don't know how you were managing all that.
One class at a time, one step at a time, one thing at a time. And
when you mention, we say that we attribute it to recovery. For those who may not understand what that is, explain that it's not just putting the bottle down.
No, it's definitely not just that. That's only one part of it. Recovery for me involved something called the 12 steps. It involved recognizing one of the best things in the world that ever happened to me was recognizing alcoholism as a disease, and it's a family disease, and it's a disease that affects our thinking and can create a mental obsession about alcohol, and then once we ingest it, it can kick off a physical craving. This also we call an allergy for more, and this also includes something called a spiritual malady, and I qualified for all these things. And
Me too.
The 12 steps to also introduce me to a God of understanding, not the one that I was raised believing that hated me, for who I was and how I was. And because well-meaning people in the church, my aunt, God bless her, she knew there was some craziness in our home with alcoholism, and so she tried to help. She took us to church, and it was just a local little small Baptist church there in the rural town that I lived in. And but my takeaway from that was not only was the things going on in my home sin and wrong, but the very nature of my being, to be gay and things like drinking and the insanity that goes along with it. I was hearing in church all these were sins and they were bad, and the ultimate sin was to be gay, and so I just pretty much didn't stand a chance.
I shared yesterday at our meeting that we were at, the biggest obstacle to finding God is the concept of God, because of the way that we have, and as kids, we want to know. I did, I wanted to understand, you hear that God is love, so tell me more, I want to know about it. And then, well-meaning people, like you said, well-educated people, you think that they know better than you because they've been around a lot longer and should have figured this out. And so you listen and you try to adopt what their truths are, even though they are opposed to what's inside us. But we think, well, they must know better than I do, so this must be the way. I guess I'm supposed to just hate myself, and you live your life like that. And until one day, that by God's grace, the God I know today wakes us up.
Yes, absolutely. That we call it, God as I understand God. And that changes on a daily basis for me. But the thing about the 12 steps is it introduced me to that, to the concept that, I could start with just a God as I understand him today. And for me, I didn't even start with that. I started with, I don't know what's out there. I don't know if there is a God or a higher power. But when I seen these people sitting around me in meetings, like the little lady that told me I could recover everything in life, I seen something going on with that they all believed in. There was something happening in their lives. And they said, hey, you can borrow ours. You don't even have to have it figured out today. And I said, okay, I will do that. I will borrow yours, and whatever that power is, I'll start with that.
Yeah. And all the years of religious training that I had, and I shared this too, was that we learned that we can develop our own concept of God. And I tell folks to make that list. What would your God look like? A God that you could do business with? Would this God be kind? Yes. Would he be loving? Would he or she or it be, unconditionally loving and forgiving and non-judgmental? And, everyone's, people are making their lists. And I used to think that something like that was heresy or blasphemy, because it wasn't what I was told, and I'm going against the grain. And yet that's what's inside me. And I shared, if we were to all make that list of what are the characteristics of a God that we could do business with, what that would look like, and we had the opportunity to share our lists and compare our notes, I think we would find a lot of similarities because we are connected at the source.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the first things in the first couple of years of my sobriety that my sponsor had me do was he talked to me about something called content prior to investigation. And he said, so when I would make a smart aleck remark about, well, the Catholic Church, blah, blah, blah. He said, so how many Catholic services have you attended? I said, none. And he said, well, why don't you attend one? And he called it spiritual exploration. And he said, if you don't know about something, he said, why not investigate it and explore it and see what's there? Yes. Because if you don't and you just shut your mind off to it, that's content prior to investigation, and you may lose a lot. And for me, what that looked like was I walked, because of no license. I walked to Catholic churches, Episcopal churches, Baptist churches, Methodist churches. I attended some like Hindu ceremonies, some Zen practices, meditation practices. I attended a couple of powwows, Native American powwows around the Gulf Coast area. I danced, a couple of prayer circles in them. I have a heavy relationship to Native American spirituality. And I just started exploring all these things. I started getting books that were on different types of spiritual practices, and it opened up a whole new world for me. And what I discovered was, just like you just said, that when we're on a path of growth and really love, and we're seeking that same thing, that love and acceptance, it really is all so much alike. It's like God being the smart God he or she is that said, I've got all these different characters out here running around. Their minds are so different and operate from such different ways. I have to come up with all these different avenues to get them focused on the core, the core being love, and just all these different pathways and roadways to get them there, because they can't all follow the same one. But I've got to get them to the same place. So we created all these different practices and religions and avenues and ways, and including lack of religion, including, lack of spirituality. I mean, I had a sponsor that, contacted me one day and said, well, you won't work with me because, I know you won't, because, I'm a practitioner of witchcraft. I said, so? I said, and I live really far away, and I can't drive, and I can't get in to meetings, and I can't meet. And I said, do you have any kind of internet service where you are? He said, well, yeah. I said, can you email? Well, of course. I said, okay, we can still work the 12 steps if you want to. It doesn't matter to me what your practices are.
Right.
And we did, and I guess he thought he would scare me off with it, but I was thinking, oh, no, you don't have any idea what my sponsor put me through. And we worked the 12 steps by email.
Wow.
And, unfortunately, his story is, not on the best path at the moment. And, but still it was, I seen this person recently, and he came up to me, and it was, and it's been some years now since we did that. And the beautiful part to me is not so much that they're still struggling and they're out there right now, but it was just the fact that he approached me, and that we're still connected.
And it was another experience for him. And isn't that what it's all about? Is we're building experience. Like you said, there's all kinds of religions out there to meet the needs of people that, we don't know. People are all in different places. And I think there's truth to be found in all of them. But I used to go looking for the differences.
Absolutely.
And it's when we look for the similarities. And I had to chuckle inside when you talked about, I thought about my brother, because I was raised Catholic. And my brother was the first in the family to have a spiritual experience and left the Catholic Church for the Baptist Church and told us all we were going to hell. That contempt prior to investigation kind of thing. But
yes,
so true. I wanted to share one other thing too that came to mind. That I do a lot of reading these days, and one of my favorites is Dr. Hawkins. And I listened to a tape of his the other day. A tape? No, you don't listen to those anymore. But you know what I'm talking about. It was an audio book, and I had to pause it. I took a picture of where because it's a 4-hour audio book. Took a picture of where I was on the 4 hours so that I could go back to it. And I brought Glenn in the car. I'm like, you got to listen to this. I want your take on it. So I'd like yours as well. So he was saying that, and he's a scientist, doctor, psychiatrist, had a spiritual experience and is now, he's gone now, but was a spiritual teacher and has lots of books out there. But someone had asked him at a satsang, where they just talk about, spiritual things and ask questions. And someone asked about addiction. And they got into this conversation about, he was stating, and I believe for me it rang true. We think that the drugs or alcohol that are out there, when we take them and we feel this euphoric state, we have all this confidence, and we You know, we can do the things like dancing. We feel comfortable in our own skin and how wonderful that feels, and, you know, how it is a trap. But what we're feeling and experiencing is not a result of the alcohol. This is his saying, the alcohol and the drugs. What those alcohol and drugs are doing are softening the frequencies of the negativity in us so that we can experience what has really been in us all along. We think it's coming from the drugs, but it's really something that has been resident in us that has just been clouded and covered over. And by us trying to take these things that are muting the negative feelings, we're finally able to feel those other things. But that is a trap, and there is a way that you can live in that place. And it's through at least for me, it has been through working these steps, taking a look at myself, looking at my resentments, all the crap that I have been holding on to for so long against so many people, and recognizing the part that I played in a lot of that, people that I had harmed, and going to them and making amends. And it's a daily journey. You know, I still remember things. Things come up. Someone said something to me the other day. I'm like, oh man, that was years ago. I need to talk to that person. That memories come up, and we're works in progress for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And part of the 12 steps, like you mentioned, is making those amends, and or sitting down and looking at resentments, looking at fears, looking at our sex life, and not only looking at where we went wrong and trying to make amends for it, but also my sponsor had me look at these things like my family relationships, future significant other relationships. Well, what did I want them to be? He said, what do you envision a healthy relationship? What do you envision, your relationship with your family looking like? And he had me write out my ideals, such as, after we discussed, what we call our sexual inventory, he had me write down, well, what does a healthy sexual ideal look like? What do you want that in a partnership to be? What is it? He said, whatever you think, whatever your desire, it's okay. Just write it down. And so I wrote all these things out, and quite honestly, didn't even recognize till years later how they had come to be. How I wanted to be a person that showed up for my family, that showed up to birthday parties, that showed up to Christmases, and showed up to funerals, that just showed up. All those things I did not do when I was drinking. And so part of my amends process and fast forwarding through the 12 steps, as a result, as I can pull up on my phone right now and show you how I have 3 birthday invitations to these younger cousins, one celebrating 1 year, one's like an 8-year, and these are now like 3 generations later. And these are the children of those same cousins that I talked about at the beginning when I said that were there for me since the beginning, since childhood. They're more like best friends. These are the 3rd generations of those people.
Wow.
And my partner, Donnie, and I, we're the couple that shows up. We're the couple that gets these invites to all these children's birthday parties and adults' birthday parties in the family, because we can be counted on to show up there. And to me, there is no better belonging, or if there's any evidence of people that accept you and love you and want you to be there, it's things like that. Yeah. If you're getting invitations saying, please be here, then something's going right. Yeah. And and that's just one small example of that. I had no idea. I mean, at one point I had went through the steps a couple of times. My family life was much better. I had went to school, now had full-time employment. I now had a driver's license. I had bought my first vehicle on my own. Due to making amends, I had showed up for my father died of alcoholism, and was healthy in every other sense of the way. He died at the age of 52. And alcoholism is a horrific ending for our life. And but I made amends. He was number 1 on my resentment list at the time, and moving forward through that, at the end, when he left this world due to making amends in this program, I was the person he was able to reach out to and was there for him. And I also lost a brother to this disease, and I was able to show up for him as well. And those are both testaments to what the results of recovery can be as well. And it just, I don't know how to put into words what those experiences were like for me, except for I treasure them.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be that person that's able to show up, like I mentioned earlier, that shows up in the family and can. I was just very grateful to be able to do that, and also, so I was moving forward in life, and everything was really had fallen into place. I had a great sponsor, I had great friends, I had I had finally come out, and I had found some LGBT recovery people, and I had migrated more toward, from my hometown toward Jackson, and made connections in recovery, and so many things going on in life, but I was still alone. And I said, well, let's, like, God, if you think I'm ready and and I know it's going to be in your time, but I'm not asking for a relationship, but if there's one for me, I'm open to it as well. And so I met my partner, and we, as of October 24th of this year, we will celebrate 25 years together. Wow. And we met, and interestingly enough, we were having a discussion last night about how we were going to some open meetings here in the Jackson area, and I recognized yesterday as I was sitting in one that you and I were in together, I was kind of looking around the room, and I thought, wow, we were both sitting in here in a meeting on Saturday nights, like 1999, just and the memories we have, and we were talking, some of those same people, from those days, are in our lives today, and but just what a blessing that has been. And I can remember the day when I recognized that, as Donnie and I were sitting together, it came to me that what my first sponsor Bob had me write out is in those ideals is, for family and relationships and all. And sometime during that time in 1994 had come to be. What I had written out on that piece of paper had transformed into my relationship with him. And I was just, the amount of thankfulness and gratitude, I mean, my heart could have exploded. I thought, wow, what he had me write then, it's just amazing how it can come to be. But that is exactly the transformative power that can come from 12 steps.
And there are 12 steps out there for just about anything.
Anything.
I think someone's already got this one out there too, but, obsessive thinkingness was another one. I was like, we need a 12-step.
Yes.
Because the steps, they're life-changing, and no matter what people are struggling with, there's a group out there, and we need community. One of the things we talk about a lot is not regretting the past or wishing to shut the door on it. So my question is, looking at your life from, when that turning point happened and where your life is today, I know my answer to this question, but your answer to, would you have changed anything that led up to that point? All the darkness, all the horrendous experiences that brought you to that point?
No.
I think that's what makes us who we are. And like you said, you looked at that letter the list that you had written. It's like we look back and it's like, where has the time gone? It's just one day at a time, and before you know it, decades of wonderment.
Yes.
Experienced.
Yes, absolutely. And I love the fact that you just said about the 12 steps that are available in thousands of programs and ways and healing and for so many, and that has been my case of, the other programs that are available, because I needed other healing besides from my alcoholism. I needed healing from the alcoholic family, situation, and there was steps for that. I needed healing as a person who had grown up from birth as an adult child of raging alcoholics, and there was healing for that.
Mm-hmm.
I needed help in being able to know that I don't really know how to function in a healthy relationship. I need help learning how to communicate. I need help in what that looks like. What is a healthy relationship? What does it consist of? What are the roles? What is my part? What is not my part? And there was 12 steps for that. And it's just the healing and recovery. I think I had mentioned earlier, a friend of mine pointed out, they said, first we have to have, we have to uncover, and then in order to discover, in order to recover.
I love that.
And that has been my case. No matter what shape, form, or fashion, time, or place we go through processes of spiritual healing, like the 12 steps. At the end of every one is a spiritual experience.
Yep.
And that's a powerful, special experience every time. And I think one example of that, if I was thinking after praying and meditating this morning, and about what does that look like now? What does it look? What does recovery for Ron look like right now this morning after looking out over 30 years, and really it's more than 30 years, because just like you pointed out, would I have changed anything in life? And the answer being no, because it's really looking out over 57 years plus and counting. And we have this thing a lot of us look at every day called the daily ponderables. And I thought that was a perfect example for me, because it has taken all of it, and it's taken the gifts of all these different opportunities and programs and out there, including I found a wonderful church, that I finally felt at home in, and so that was huge, to have felt ostracized and shunned, from organized religion, to the point of being able to, feel loved and embraced. And for me, that was through a church locally known as Wells. And but I did have a couple little things I wanted to share that I thought culminated, to me, what recovery is today. And some of these came from the Daily Ponderables this morning, but there was a quote that said, for us, recovery is more than just pleasure. And this is from NA's basic text. And it said, just for today, I will accept my feelings, whatever they may be, just as they are. I will practice the program and learn to live with my feelings. And then from Al-Anon, it said, when faced with difficult or painful situations, I can remember that a loving God is always here for me, always available as a source of comfort, guidance, and peace. No one is alone if they've come to believe in a power greater than themselves. And from ACA, it said, by attending meetings and working the steps, reaching out to others, finding a higher power, we can recapture our true selves, the person we were born to be. And from the Coda's 12 steps, this is a process of growth and change. It takes us along an ever-changing road. Sometimes the way is hard and craggy. Sometimes we climb mountains. Sometimes we slide down the other side on a toboggan. Sometimes we rest. Sometimes we grope through the darkness. Sometimes we're blinded by sunlight. Ever-changing, always interesting, always leading someplace better, someplace good. What a journey. And then I mentioned earlier that not only is my Christian faith very important to me today, I still continue to find solace and great relief in Native American spirituality that has been here for so long. And this reading said, there is no death, only a change of worlds. The elders tell us that the other dimension, the spirit world, our spirit in our bodies does not die. It only looks that way to our eyes and our brains. Some of our ceremonies allow us to see into the spirit world. Death is only part of the process of life. It shows the transition into the spirit world. Our elders tell us this is a joyful life journey. My Creator, help me to understand both the seen world and the unseen world. Let me not be afraid of the world you live in.
Love that. We say that a lot on this podcast, that we are not of this world, and we are eternal, no beginning and no end. And we've never been separated from our Creator. No matter how many times people tried to tell me that, it's not true for me today.
Nor I.
If you had a message in closing that you could share with anyone who may be out there struggling and they're listening in and things are striking a chord with them and they are wondering if this is for them, just maybe a little message of hope.
I would say reach out, no matter how small. If it's a phone number, if it's a phone call, if it's a text message, if there's make some connection, no matter how small, because we are all connected, and it all matters. We all matter. Mm-hmm. It all matters, and there is help, and there are people out here that want to help, and because we all do matter, and connection matters so much, that any of these, whether it's alcoholism, drug addiction, codependency, the effects of dysfunction and alcoholism, gambling, sex addiction, fill in the blank with anything that you want to. The one thing it all has in common is isolation, and it's the worst enemy. If any disorder, disease, dysfunction can use anything, it's isolation. If it can convince us that we're not enough, that we're not worthy, that we are alone, that we don't matter, and that we're unsafe and alone, then it has us. But it's not true. It's a lie. Mm-hmm. It is a lie. So just reach out. Just reach out.
Thank you for that, Ron. And speaking of reaching out, I'm going to ask Danny if he'll put up our contact information.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, my friend. Until next time, love and kindness always.